I think some of these people should not be in Congress. I think they're a disgrace. I think some of them shouldn't be Americans. I don't think they love our country. And I'm not going to be afraid to call them out and go right at them because I think they're bad people, particularly people like Rashida Tlaib. She's just a bad person. She's not a terrorist sympathizer. She's a terrorist. And I don't mind saying it because it's true.
Let me introduce you to one of the most bigoted, racist, and disgusting members of Congress, Florida Representative Randy Fine.
You're done too. Next, 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds is disgusting.
Yeah, well, yeah. Come on up. Enjoy your terrorist rag. Come on, let's go. You're next. Come on. What's your name? I'm the chairman. I can say what I want. If you don't like it, you can leave. Come on. You're next. I'll clear the room, and then we can move on if I hear one more outburst. I don't have to have any of you sit here.
While serving in the Florida State Legislature, Fine racially abused a constituent for daring to use his 30 seconds of speaking time to call for the end of carnage that Palestinian people have been subjected to, while simultaneously disrespecting the cultural significance of the kafiyeh.
The fact of the matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one. It speaks to the importance of the only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
There's something deeply, deeply wrong with dehumanizing an entire population and their identity to such a degree. But to Randy Fine, this is just how he operates.
What I was saying is that we didn't negotiate with evil in World War II. We defeated the Germans. We defeated the Japanese using any means that were necessary. And the same needs to be done in Gaza. Nuking Gaza would be a terrible idea. The fallout would drift into Israel. It would kill the hostages. The point that I was making was,
but you're not worried about it killing,
and say,
for example, women and children in Gaza who, the innocents?
I think war is a messy thing. I believe the Palestinianism in Gaza is on a level of evil that we saw in Japan and we saw in Germany back in World War II. And I believe Israel needs to do what's necessary to defeat it. And I won't apologize for that. Calling evil for what it is, calling danger for what it is acceptable. It's when you cross that line and you say, and that person should be killed. That's never a line that I've crossed, nor do I think it should be done.
It's pretty gross to see that type of rhetoric coming out of Fine's mouth, right? Talking about the type of evil from Palestinianism in Gaza is to levels of what we saw from Germany and Japan, World War II. Yeah, you're a really, really despicable man. And I'm being nice with my words there. And it's not surprising that he's allowed to get away with this by his own party. He can just believe and spread so many violent, bigoted language and nothing happens to him. Now that you know who Randy Fine is, let's check out this incredibly reasonable and understandable tweet from Representative Ilhan Omar criticizing Trump for welcoming Benjamin Netanyahu for yet another meeting. As you may have predicted based on what you saw, Fine fired off this disgusting reply, calling his House colleague a, quote, terrorist, while falsely smearing Omar as a supporter of terrorism and violence against innocent civilians, which he has vehemently spoken out against before, which then prompted Representative Jamie Raskin to call out and condemn Fine's bigotry with a post of his own on Blue Sky, highlighting how Fine's deep-rooted Islamophobia could justify a physical attack on Omar in the mind of the perpetrator, eerily similar to the tragic shootings of fellow Minnesota Democrats Melissa Hortman and John Hoffman. First off, Randy Fine is a terrible human being when you have him tweeting something like that that's dripping in Islamophobia. It's smacking everybody in the face. And to say that about your fellow congressperson, yeah, you've lost your mind. And to think that there are going to be no consequences too, that disturbs me. But I do like that Jamie Raskin did stand up for Representative Omar and called Randy Fine out, saying that's not acceptable. We don't do that. It could lead to violence against Omar based on what we've seen before. But here's the thing. Islamophobia, y'all, is one of the most permissible and acceptable forms of bigotry used by not just Republicans, but also by Democrats, because I think there's a lack of humanity that we see from these officials in Muslims. And I think a lot of it has to do with what happened 9/11, there's so many stereotypes, that they place on these people. There's so much fear that's going on in their minds when they think about the religion of Islam and how it maybe conflicts in their minds with Christianity, because, we are a nation that likes to position itself as Christian, even though, we're not a Christian nation. There's just a lot of Christians in the United States. But yeah, it's really sad, because it should be condemned and called out every single time, and there should be penalties for those type of things where people are blatantly Islamophobic. Randy Fine continues to show himself to be a reprehensible individual. You know how much hate and fear you have in your heart to tweet out something like that? The attacks that Omar and Tlaib have been getting? Well, now Mamdani is getting those as well lately, right? From so many different directions. And he's got to have security with him at all times because of the threats that he's gotten. And it's all traced back to, him being a Muslim and then also being a democratic socialist. But yeah, it's scary out here, guys. Democrats deserve a lot of blame for how they've handled things, especially during the presidential election and their position on, Palestine and everything going on in Gaza and, funding the Israeli government with weapons. But here, I will give them credit for finally standing up for one of their own and trying to hold Fine accountable. It's sad, right? Because I think the bar is so low based on what we've witnessed from the Democrats and Democratic leadership. But here, all right, they did something, okay? They still got to do a whole lot more, but this is a nice thing to see from the Democrats and Democratic leadership. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.